Hello, welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Solo and Going Bold. And we are so pleased to have you here with us on this show, which is called Going Solo with Cece. I am your host, Cece Shatz. I'm fondly called the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I am a divorce, dating, and a life coach. And today we're going to talk about something kind of important, right? And we always talk about important things. But we're going to talk about the man's compass, a man's compass. And we have, let me bring him forward with us. We have Dr. Simon. Hello, how are you?
Hello, thank you for having me on the show. Fantastic.
Oh, I am so excited about having you here. We have Dr. Simon Fokt. He's German's renowned philosopher, educator, and writer. And we're going to explore the man's compass today. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're coming all the way from Germany, which is so exciting for me to have someone so far away. And I just love the internet. You know, it just brings us closer. But tell us a little bit about yourself. And I know you do a lot of writing, a lot of educating, individuals. And so tell us a little bit about how you started to get into into this type of frame of work.
Absolutely, yes. So, like you said, I'm a philosopher. I actually did my PhD at a University of St Andrews in Britain. So I spent a lot of my education time in Britain. I moved back to Germany a few years ago. I live in Berlin right now. And for most of my academic career, I have been working on value theory. So things to do with either aesthetic value or with ethical value, things to do with questions of what do we consider to be beautiful or valuable in the aesthetic sense, or what do we consider to be valuable in the ethical sense. So what is good, what is right, what is righteous, things like this. And for a very long time, I've been kind of doing this from this very philosophical blue sky research, let's say, perspective. But at some point, I started getting more and more impatient with this, let's say, and thinking like, wouldn't it be great if we could actually apply all of this really interesting theoretical knowledge to more everyday issues. And there's a whole branch of ethics called applied ethics, in which I started specializing at some point, writing a bit more about medical ethics, for example, and getting more involved in data ethics, things to do with AI, for example, right now and all that. That turned out to be a good angle because obviously AI is a big thing right now. So I have been kind of working on that a little bit already before. And right now I am also teaching data ethics at the Applied Sciences University in Berlin. And kind of I took this philosophical education, this very kind of theoretical philosophical education, and decided to do something I call philosophical activism, which is basically take this theoretical knowledge and actually use it to teach and talk to people who make real life decisions about real life problems that we are actually all kind of invested in. So I've been teaching medical ethics to doctors and nurses. I've been teaching professional ethics to business people, and I'm now teaching mostly data ethics to IT professionals, data scientists, people who design AIs, for example, and things like this. And I think that this is really important because many of those people kind of don't think about those issues. They learn the technical skills and they don't really learn about the how this matters for people. But all of those technologies are created for humans, and it is very important that we kind of take all of this into account when we're designing this. So this is kind of like my main job, if you will. And at some point, and I throughout this career, I've been really interested in diversity issues and in kind of women's issues as well and men's issues. And I was always kind of a bit sad that women have been kind of asking questions about what it is to be a woman for a century now, at least, and for the last 50 years very intensely. And feminism has brought so much to women. And whatever your views are, I think it's really obvious that the situation of women has changed massively over the last century, and it is largely because, well, people were really reflective about it. People were really thinking what it is to play this social role, right? Why do we need to do things the way society tells us we should do them? Why is it, why are we put in certain boxes and we just need to do what we're told? Do we not want to do things differently? And I think it's just a shame that men have just never had a movement like this in a way, because it was always assumed that men know who they are and that we are kind of in control and we kind of live the life the way we want to anyway. But it's not really true. And I think that as the world is changing right now, and many of those social dynamics have been really redefined in the last years, it is really important that guys kind of do the very similar thing of just thinking, okay, well, who are we actually? Like, why are we doing the things we're doing? Like, am I
Right.
am I behaving the way I'm behaving because I want to? Does it work for me, or is it something the society tells me, and I'm kind of just trying to fit in and maybe doing what others expect of me? So that's kind of the motivation behind this. And I've been doing some academic work in this area and kind of more broadly diversity areas in the academia. But true to form, because I'm committed to this philosophical activism, like I call it, I decided to start a blog and then start recording some videos as well, and different other projects in which I'm trying to kind of apply this sort of thing by not so much writing the kind of deep theory of it, but rather just talk to regular people about everyday problems that we all struggle with, I think.
Yeah.
So I focus writing on relationships. I focus writing on managing your stress and emotions, for example, or like finding the best way to behave at work and things like this.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
has been my angle for some time now.
I love it, actually. I saw one of your, I've been watching some of the little, I don't know what you call them, vlogs or whatever, the little shorts kind of things that you did. And you did one where you put a pink top on, and it was really good. It was
It was the
really,
Barbie one. Yes, I
um,
recorded this video soon after the Barbie film came out because it
that
was so
was.
controversial, right? And I'm just like, well, if I'm doing a thing about Barbie, then there needs to be some pink, right? And like I'm confident enough in my masculinity to not worry about, wearing something pink for a video. So I'm just like, let's
But
do
I
it.
thought it was great. I thought, you stepped out of the box, right? And
Thank
you
you.
did
Yeah.
this thing where you clicked your, and then all of a sudden you had this pink top on. It was really, it was interesting. But better yet, it got my attention to make me listen to it. And I thought, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And I like this idea of the man's compass. And I think it's because, I have a young son that's in college now, but I also see my older sons struggle with
Mhm.
what they feel like their expectation of life should be, and then their question of their direction, you know.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't think that men should question that, that men seem to have it be, as a woman, right? Men seem to have it figured out. They can figure out what they want to do, and they just go forward, and never think twice about it, where us women, we have to forge through, I think, a little bit more about it. That's changing. I think it's changing. But I see them, and I see how they question their paths of life and where they want to be and who they want to be with, and everything. So I liked, you had a a compass that we had posted, and I do apologize. I should have had it up here for you to be able to share with the audience, but it was fascinating to see that, how you had broken it down. So why don't we talk a little bit about that, like the certain
Mhm.
directions, things like that, because, men are, I think we're just human, right? We're Men and women are both human, and we're all trying to figure life out, right? Individually.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'll let you in on a secret in here. I call it the man's compass, but I mean, it's mostly just a human compass. I mean,
I
in many
agree.
ways, it's
Mhm.
it's it's not going to be that different for anybody else. And I
Mhm.
think that it's important to kind of acknowledge people's position in life and where they're coming from. And I think that men and women right now, of course, statistically speaking, everybody is different, so all this, but like statistically speaking, are probably coming from slightly different places, and potentially also deal with slightly different problems. So I think it's important to address, different demographics a bit separately. But I think you're totally right that like there is much more social acceptance for women to question things
Right.
and to kind of think out of the box and all this. And men, there's still kind of this, if you there's this very narrow definition of what it is to be a real man, right? And
Mhm.
I, like you say, I step out of it because I put a pink top on a video, right? I mean, it's not that much, right? Like how even if you focus on things like this, like how limiting is it that there is this very narrow set of colors that men can wear without seeming unmanly, right? And we kind of are in this situation in which we constantly need to prove that we're man enough or that we're not somehow stepping out of this box, right? And I think it's very limiting. I think it's very courageous of many men to step out of this box, because what they risk in this situation is, well, they risk the ridicule of other people. And sadly, it's not only men who would ridicule each other. There's many women who would ridicule men as well for stepping out of this box.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a very courageous thing to do. And it's see, I kind of, many people talk about this as if it's like some kind of act of, I don't know, denying yourself something or giving up on masculinity, on the traditional masculinity or something like this. I don't see it like this at all. I see it as an act of rebellion, of going like, I'm not going to do what the people tell me I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do what I think is right. I'm going to do what works for me. I'm kind of like strong enough to just find my own way. I don't need to go after, the kinds of things that everybody else tells me I should be doing. And I think that very often when we talk to men, it's kind of important to find this narrative that's an empowering narrative. That's not the narrative of like, you need to question this box that you're in, or this narrow idea of masculinity, or this potentially something that is limiting you and others because there's something wrong with you and you need to change, right? And there's this negative aspect of, it's just not working. It's not working for us. It's not working for you. Something needs to change, and it's wrong, right? And instead, come up with positive narratives, going like, hey, man, you can be so much more than this. Like, screw all of those people who tell you that you only need to be limited to that thing. Like, rebel against this. Being a rebel is cool. And I think that creating these sort of narratives and putting them on a compass and putting them on some sort of framework that allows people to focus their minds and go like, yeah, I know my direction. I know where I can go with this. I know that I need to do this and this and this. And then, I can figure things out for myself. I think it's potentially.
Yeah. I like that. I think because we tend to, as individuals, there's around us, right? Family, friends, whatever, there's like this expectation of us. And so I'm finding that with my sons, especially my youngest one, because he's trying to figure out his career and what he wants to do. And he's being encouraged in a very positive way, from his father, going into a particular field, and he's doing, his dad meaning to do well. But then I also see my son struggling with some other ambitions that he'd like to explore, that he would like to do that are a lot more risky, that's like stepping out of the box, doing something totally different,
Yeah, I'm really curious. What are those things, if you feel comfortable to share?
I'm sorry, what?
I'm really
We
curious.
broke up there a little
What are
bit.
those things?
Oh, it's just getting into more of the media, which
Mhm.
is like I'm, kind of like I'm in. And so doing a little bit more of that. And then, like it's a little bit more of the, being on camera, and then also doing some different, like different shorts and some different things like that. And like, I know his father's a little bit concerned, like how do you make money? That's not traditional business, right? And so he's thinking, how do you make money? How do you make a living doing that type of thing? And it's just stepping out of the norm of what my ex-husband is used to. So I get that, but then I also, part of me says, listen, be you, right? Do what you want to do. And but I also want him to have, want him to make money and be able to make a good living for himself, and do all of those things that all moms want from where their children. But when I see that struggle, that man's type of trying to find your way in the world. And as a woman, I just always thought that was kind of given. Guys, it didn't have that kind of struggle like we as women have. But so, yeah,
Mm.
so I thought it was interesting, your man's compass, to see that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a balance, right? I mean, you definitely want to have something that will allow you to easily survive, but at the same time, I mean, we don't live to work, right? So hopefully, I hope that your son will find a way that allows him to kind of have a little bit of both, and maybe follow a passion as well. But yes, like you say, I think that in this respect, and in so many other respects, our culture is bombarding us with so many different messages on how to live your life and what's worth something in your life. And I think that men right now are more likely to struggle with respect to this, because so many of those traditional paths in life are kind of not really as attractive, or just aren't there anymore. So there's multiple kind of career paths that used to be the man's jobs that are just not there anymore, because they've been automated, or they've been taken offshore, or outsourced somewhere else. There is a more kind of this cultural trope that a man should be the protector and the provider of the family and things like this. But increasingly, most women don't need anyone to provide for them, because they can have their jobs and they can provide for themselves perfectly well. Well, when it comes to the protecting as well, I mean, we live in pretty safe societies these days. So most of the time, it's really not that relevant either. And many guys, I think, are struggling because there are those things that were giving meaning to our life. There are those things that there was a playbook. You could open the playbook and kind of just work on the script. Yeah. And I think that for many people, those scripts either don't exist anymore, or just aren't particularly attractive, because it's hard to earn high social status, for example, working a manly factory job or something like this, right? It's hard to win high social status through providing, if it turns out that actually slowly women are better educated than men and likely to get better jobs than them. And there's so many of those paths to either of professional or personal development, but also to find some sort of meaning in life, to find some self-worth, something that makes you feel like, yeah, I'm good. And because of this, I feel like there's also a bigger multitude of people trying to give you solutions to that. Because people go like, well, we can't do, or it's more difficult to do things the old way. What do we do then? And then you have this bombardment of different people giving you their solutions, some of which are better than others, some of which are probably horrible, some of which are maybe good. But I imagine that as a young person as well, it's pretty difficult to tell the difference. I mean, for us, it's very difficult to tell the difference sometimes. And when you're bombarded with this, and I imagine also care about many other things, not only your future career, but also, well, how your friends perceive you right now, right? Or kind of what social status do you have in your group and things like this. And it must be pretty confusing. And this is also the approach that I try to take in the Man's Compass, which is to try and treat guys as just needing a little bit of guidance, needing a compass to maybe go like, hey, here's a direction, because there's so much discussion about men doing things wrong all the time, right? And about men being somehow, I don't know, anything ranging from just being a bit, I don't know, lost to being violent or worse things. And I think a lot of the time there is a reason for that. People do stupid things because they kind of don't know what to do. So they end up doing something silly. And instead of focusing on punishing them for doing the stupid things, it might be good to go a step back and go like, well, maybe we should offer them some ideas for better things to do. And that's what I would like to do with the Man's Compass as well. Kind of offer people good alternatives, offer them narratives in which they can see themselves, go like, who am I in life? All right, okay, that's a good idea. I could be this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's nice that it's like, when you were talking, I was thinking about that old saying, does your job define you, or do you define your job? And it's so like, we strive so much about, going through our education to try to get the job and all this kind of thing, but we lose ourselves along the way of who we really are and what really makes us tick. And I think that that's important. And then we start feeling lost when that happens. So yeah, it's kind of a catch-22, when we're talking about it. But I
Mhm.
like what you do, and I like the idea that you question, individuals and have them step out and really think about themselves and what it is that makes them happy and where they want to go in life and what they want to do and how they want to show up. And that's
Yeah.
that's really important, especially to young people, how they have to show up in life. So yeah, that's totally great. What we're going to do is we'll take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about that. Maybe you can give us some tips and things as we move forward. That those are questioning, what they're starting a new life. A lot of individuals that listen to our shows are starting a new single life, and they're trying to step into that moving forward. And how does one do that? And in a way that is good for them and that kind of makes it work for them. So we can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like. So when we come back, we'll definitely do that. So you guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and this is the newsstreamingnetwork.com. I am Cece Shatz. I have my wonderful friend here with me, Dr. Simon Fokt. We're talking about the man's compass, and it's a very enlightening and interesting subject. So I am very thrilled to have him on the show here today. We'll be right back, everyone. Just hang tight. Welcome back to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. That's our radio station. And you are listening to newsstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Solo Media and Going Bold Media. So we want to welcome you back. This show is Going Solo with Cece. I am your host, Cece Shatz. I am fondly called the Doyenne of Relationship Building. I'm a divorce, dating, and a life coach. And today we have Dr. Simon Fokt with us, and he's Germany's renowned philosopher, educator, and writer. And we're exploring a man's compass. And before we start, I want to make sure you guys know how to get a hold of Dr. Simon. So you can contact him on contact@Simon, and that's SIMON, and then his last name is spelled FOKT.org, and then his website is simonfokt.org. That's SIMONFOR, no, I'm sorry, FOKT.org. I'm sorry about that. Well, we are so pleased to have you here with us talking about a man's compass. So the first part of the show, we covered really a lot of ground. We talked about an individual themselves trying to explore their life and really accountability not only to society itself, but then also to ourselves as individuals, right? So now as we move forward and we decide we want to, maybe begin a new life for ourselves or a new path for ourselves, Dr. Simon, what would you say, what we can share with the audience with regards to that?
hmm Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's a question that we philosophers have been talking about for centuries, if not millennia, right now, right?
Mhm.
When I talk about this, I like to refer back to the ancient philosophy of Aristotle, who was writing specifically about the role of human development being the development of virtue. And it's a word that is kind of out of our vocabulary these days. Quite often, we don't talk about the virtues quite so often. Oh, maybe we do, but it was really important for him, and I think we should bring it back because it's kind of what are virtues. Virtues are the sort of character traits that we can have that are in us that just make us a better person, a good person, a person who is good to others, a person who is useful to society, a person who is giving and building and things like this. And those can be things such as, for example, courage, right? Or wisdom. or
Mhm.
humility, confidence, compassion, kindness, respect. I don't know. And there's many of these sort of virtues that we can have. And for Aristotle, it was really important to understand that all of those virtues are the kinds of things that are the golden middle between the vices of deficiency and the vices of excess. So, for example, if you're a courageous person, you're the person who's disposed to behave in a courageous way, and that's kind of in the middle between someone who's craven, someone who's afraid of anything. That's
Mm.
like vice of deficiency. But on the other hand, you can also be kind of too courageous, and that's when you're just brazen. You're kind of running into any danger without a need, and just causing yourself unnecessary danger, right? So, and all of those virtues can be understood in a similar way. And I really like to talk to people about the journey through life or their personal development as this constant process of becoming a more virtuous person, of becoming a better person, of becoming the best version of yourself, like
Mhm.
your best self, right? And all of those virtues, we kind of, when we go through life, we kind of calibrate, right? So we kind of get a bit more courageous or a bit wiser or a bit more confident or kind and other things like this.
Mhm.
And that can be understood both in terms of just scaling up in this virtue, but also kind of finding this golden middle between those potential vices around it, right? So this
Right.
is the sort of framework that I want to and that I want to promote with the
Mhm.
man's compass as well, because I think that people who are virtuous are the kind of people who are not only good for everyone else. It's like you want a society in which people are virtuous, because those are the sort of people who are going to help each other. Those are the sort of people you can rely on, the kinds of people who will build something rather than destroy it. But it's also good for you, because if you're a virtuous person, then you're the kind of person people want to be around, right?
Mhm.
You're the kind of person whom others want to have as a friend, as a partner, as a lover, as someone to hang out with. And that means that your life is going to be better as well. So I think it's really important to kind of think about it this way. And I also really like this framework because it really highlights the fact that this is something Plato was really going on about as well, that humans are never like a finished product. Humans are a process. Humans
Mhm.
never are. You're never meant to just be. You're always meant to become something better, right? And there is this kind of a bit annoying aspect to it, because just like, well, I just want to just stop working on myself. I just want to enjoy life, right? Just be. But it's also really exciting because you can always be better. And it's some fascinating modern research that is done on the topic as well, which is showing that whenever you ask people how much they have changed over the last 10 years, they always say, "Oh, I changed so much. It's like I'm a completely different person right now," right? And probably you or many listeners will have this experience as well. But then, if you ask people, "Oh, how much do you think you will change over the next 10 years?" The typical answer is just like, "Oh, probably not much. I worked it out. I know where I am right now. This is the way I'm gonna stay." The funny thing is that it doesn't matter at what age you ask people that, they always answer the same. So if you ask 30-year-olds how much they changed since they were 20, they say, I changed massively. But from 30 to 40, I won't change that much anymore. I'll just be the same way. But then you ask 40-year-olds and they go like, no, no, from 30 to 40, I changed massively. But from 40 to 50, I probably won't change that much anymore. And then you ask 50-year-olds and they say exactly the same. I changed massively from 40. So you see where I'm going with this, right? People always kind of underestimate how much they're actually going to change in the future. So we are changing anyway. And I think we should really embrace it and really kind of stand behind this idea that we are going to change, and it's an opportunity. It's a great thing because we can become better. We can always become better than we are right now. And if you're looking at your past self and you're thinking, oh my God, I can't believe the things I was doing, it's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. It means that you have improved. That means that you're smarter, better, and more interesting and whatnot.
Mhm.
So I think this is a really good way of looking at life, and this is how I'm trying to reach people as well, is kind of have this view of I am going to change. It's a good thing I'm going to change, and here is a framework of how I'm going to change. I'm going to change by developing my virtues, so skilling up in the virtue and kind of trying to find this golden middle between the
Mhm.
vice of deficiency and excess, right? And for the man's compass specifically, I kind of isolated several virtues that I think are particularly useful in our modern context. And this is the stuff that I promote also through my writing, kind of
Right.
promote people, helping people focus on those virtues and developing those virtues.
I think that's wonderful. And maybe you should change the name of the compass and just call it maybe the modern compass or the human compass or something
You
like
know,
that.
I'm
Because
actually thinking about this right now, and I have to say that recently I've been thinking more and more about how I don't really want to introduce those divisions or kind of think about how to. I thought initially that it's a good idea to target a more specific demographic, but I think right now it was not a good idea. I'm thinking of changing names, so we're thinking we're
well,
thinking
there
very much.
you go. Well, that helped
I
you
was
say
potentially thinking
change.
of I was
Remember, we can't be
potentially thinking
afraid
of
of change.
renaming. I was potentially thinking of renaming it the Life Compass or something like this to
Yes.
kind of signal that, yeah,
Yeah.
it is applicable to anyone.
Yeah. Because when I was looking at it, I thought this could be any sex. It could be anyone, if anyone looking at the compass. And we'll post the compass up so you guys can have that so you can see it. But it really refers to all of us, and I love what you say about change because we can't be afraid of change, right? Because change just means that we evolve in life, and I've often said we're not who we were yesterday, nor are we now who we are going to be tomorrow. And it's like we're constantly evolving and learning and growing as we go. And so I love the idea of being able to explore and just you know maybe there's something that we have in our path that we've never envisioned that we would even do, or people that we would meet. And so why limit ourselves? So I love it. I love everything you say and everything you do. And I think you're a super guy, and I want to thank you so much for being on the show here with us today. We probably could talk for hours about this, which I'm sure you do with others, right? Because you're a philosopher, so you do chat, I'm sure, with a lot of people and talk about a lot of things. But yeah, I would love to have you come back on the show again and maybe home in on a particular topic. If you'd love to do that, if you have the time, I'd love to be able to do that. Pick your brain
Why
a
not?
little
Let's
bit.
do it, sure.
Yeah, it would be great to have you. But it's so interesting, this compass. You guys need to look at it and embrace it, no matter what sex you are. Just embrace it. And again, if you have any questions, contact Simon, because I'm sure he would love to hear from you. But you just put in contact, and that's CONTACT at Simon, SIMON. His last name is spelled FOKT.org, and that's how you reach him on his email. Check out his website, Simon, again, SIMON, last name FOKT.org, and check out his website. But let him know that you saw him here on the show. I would greatly appreciate it. And share this video, and make sure you subscribe and like our channel, because it's great shows like this that I really think changes lives. And so thank you so much, Simon, for being on the show here with us today. Are there any last words you'd like to leave our audience?
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invite, and I'm absolutely very happy for anyone to contact me. I know discussing with people in person as well, hearing the personal stories is really what is interesting in all of those things as well, I think. I always say a very similar thing for the last words. I think it's very important for all the people to spend a little bit of time on trying to really know themselves. And this is another thing from ancient philosophy. Socrates was talking about this a lot, about the need to really understand who it is we are ourselves. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I think in the last decades, women have done a really pretty decent job at kind of trying to understand who they are. And I think it's time for guys to embrace this opportunity as well and think of it like, oh, wow, I mean, society tells me that this and that is the way to go. But like, what is it that I actually want myself? And the first step to understanding that is really trying to know yourself. And I really recommend everyone to dig in a little bit to this ancient philosophy that I'm trying to also bring out in a very accessible way to you all. So if you're interested in this, you can look at my content, or you can look at some other people who are talking about this and try to explore this whole concept of knowing yourself. And in this vein, I also would invite everyone to write me and try to discuss that among yourselves or with me as well.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And keep doing those little shorts and whatever that you do because they're very interesting. And like I said, the one I watched with about, the Barbie, I thought was not only hilarious, but very intriguing and I think educational. If you stop after you stop laughing, with what you're doing because you're really catching attention. But then when you really start listening and taking it in what you had to say. I think it was definitely very interesting. And so, and I commend you for stepping out of the box and doing something totally different because you're a great guy and you've got great information. And I know that you're helping people along the way. So thank you for doing all that you do. So I totally appreciate you. So again, please reach out to him. Send him an email at contact@simonfokt.org. That's Simon, Simon, last name Fokt.org. Check out his website, simonfokt.org. And we want to thank you guys for joining us here today. This show is called Going Solo with Cece. I am your host, Cece Shatz, and you are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are part of the newsstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Solo and Going Bold. And we want to thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to talking with you again. Bye for now, everyone.